Good evening. Good evening, and welcome to the Nassau County Forum on Sustainability. My name is Michael Basilico. I am the Long Island Chapter Chair for the New York State League of Conservation Voters. And tonight, our Education Fund, along with Hofstra University and the National Center for Suburban Studies, along with our other partners, are in the environmental community, are participating in an educational forum. Oh, I guess cell phones would be good to be off at this time. Yeah. To help educate our electorate on issues that pertain to Nassau County, particularly issues that we believe both county executives can move forward as in their new term coming up. One of them will be a winner, one of them won't, but in this new term, we want to listen to them and ask them questions, and also the audience will be allowed to ask questions of things that they can move forward on their agenda, particularly as it relates to the agenda that we've defined for Long Island, which includes wastewater, water quality, our energy policies, conservation policies, smart growth, transit-oriented development, open space preservation, brownfield redevelopment, and our transportation infrastructure, which is critical to moving people around outside of our vehicles in ways that consume less fuel and energy. So we've outlined these in our agenda. You can look it up online. We constantly relook at our agenda to see if those are practical policies. Tonight, our panelists are going to ask questions. Our moderator will moderate those questions. Tonight, we're joined by members of our Board of Directors, Jennifer Rimmer, who is one of our panelists, Richie Kessel, former chair of LIPA, who's in the back, Chris Hahn, who is a Fox News contributor and multitasker of many things in our community, and Chris Capisi, who's vice president of Avalon Bay Communities on Long Island, and they're all very active in our board, and we look forward to deliberations on our consideration of an endorsement separate from the Education Fund on which candidate after this forum we may think best for endorsement. And then if you see people around with the little green check, our green check is a symbol of what we believe to be the best candidate to be considered by the electorate for the environment. And we've already endorsed many candidates this electoral season. You may see it on some of their literature thus far, and we have this one to consider as well. Let me get back to my iPad that went off. Okay.
Let the trust in the force.
This month is 1 month after Superstorm Sandy, and it brings about, that storm brought about many considerations in terms of sustainability that we immediately had to consider in the aftermath. That was important before Superstorm Sandy. Many of the topics, particularly ones that we've addressed with the League prior to the storm and post the storm, in terms of sewer, water treatment policies and investments, and also our power infrastructure. They were there before the storm, they're here after the storm, and they're items that we're going to discuss in terms of our sustainability tonight. Two interesting things before I go to just thanking our co-sponsors. Both candidates, it's very interesting, both candidates are 51 years old, 1962 like myself, a good year. Both candidates are Italian Americans like myself, not so bad. But both candidates, more importantly, very interesting, came out of community advocacy on the environment. Tom Suozzi was active in Glen Cove in the redevelopment of a national showcase Superfund site. And he got involved because he just didn't like the way things were, and he did that. And it made great progress in Glen Cove. At Mangano, in a very similar fashion, on the Grumman property, a legacy site from another industrial era through wartime production of aircraft and military items, left behind a mess. And Ed got involved as a community advocate and became a county legislator and then county exec. So there are many parallels between both of the candidates. And it'll be interesting to see how they elevate their debate and their views on the environment here tonight. And I think that's a unique opportunity to have two very qualified individuals, very knowledgeable, and I think you're going to find our dialogue tonight very engaging and very much on point. As I mentioned, this event is not being done alone. We're doing it in conjunction with the Citizens Campaign for the Environment. Adrian Esposito is here. The American Planning Association, Long Island Chapter, Tri-State Transportation Campaign, and Vision Long Island. I saw Eric somewhere in the back. Not to mention, again, Hofstra's great effort for hosting this in the most professional way. We actually found it very easily. We were able to find refreshments, all the other facilities, and again, we thank Hofstra as well. I just know Jessica Zanka just came in, one of our board of directors on the local chapter. Welcome, Jessica. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Larry Levy, who is the Dean of Suburban Studies at Hofstra University. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Michael. There was a moment there when I thought you were going to announce your candidacy, since you had so much in common with the other candidates. As Michael said, I'm Larry Levy, Executive Dean of the National Center for Suburban Studies. And I'd like to thank you all for attending tonight. This is an incredible turnout, and I think it reflects the seriousness, the importance of these issues. I'm going to introduce only two people. There is a room full of very special dignitaries and activists, but I want to recognize two Hofstra people. Ina Katz, the Administrative Director of the National Center for Suburban Studies, handled all the detailed work of this almost single-handedly in conjunction with the League. And Dr. Robert Brinkman, who is Director of Sustainability Studies at Hofstra. Hofstra now has a degree-granting program. This is not an advertisement. This is actually a segue. A degree-granting program in sustainability, and we are going to be offering a master's degree we expect next September, as well as the bachelor's degree that we're already offering. And as Dr. Brinkman would tell you, that sustainability is a word that means a lot of things to a lot of people. But when it comes down to it, it should mean a lot of things to a lot of people because it involves a lot of things. You cannot have environmental protection without a strong economy. You cannot have a strong economy without a clean and sound environment. And all the other so-called silos that we're trying to break down in between: healthcare, transportation, economic development, poverty. Sustainability, we call it the 3 E's, the 3 pillars, which is the environment, the economy, and social equity. And without all of them working in conjunction, we cannot possibly have a sustainable community, certainly not over the long run. Now, before we begin, I'd like to explain the format and then introduce our panelists. Tonight's event, you should understand this, is a forum. It's not a debate. Candidates will appear sequentially, one after the other. Each candidate will be on stage for about 30 minutes and take questions from our panelists. I won't be asking questions except to reflect ones from the audience. The candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. We have a timekeeper seated in the front row. She has a sign marked 30 seconds to help them know when to wrap up. She also has a bell to note when the allotted 2 minutes are up. So please don't think we're rude, or certainly that she's rude. I can be rude sometimes. I have to watch that. But she's only doing her job. We'd also like to take questions submitted from the audience. When you registered at the front desk, you should have been offered an index card, right? Everybody was at least offered an index card to write down any questions that you may have for candidates. If you have your questions ready now, don't ask them, but please hand them to a member of the staff. They'll be walking down the aisles, and you can see them. They have their hands up. They're smiling. They're very happy to be here.
They're waving.
If you didn't get a card, please check in at the front desk at an appropriate time and see if you can get one. We'll be collecting them now and at intermission between the candidates' appearances. Along with your questions, by the way, write down your name and your town. And remember, these questions should focus on sustainability and involve issues that are germane to a county executive, what a county executive actually does. And I'll ask the candidates your questions. I'll try to get in as many of them as possible in our allotted time. And on that same subject, and in the spirit of trying to hear from as much as we can from the candidates, please don't applaud, except when they're first introduced and when they say goodbye. We also want to keep the nonpartisan spirit alive and not get into a contest of who got the highest on the applause meter. I know it's going to disappoint some of you who came ready to just rock here.
You're so no fun, Larry.
I know. Our panelists include, directly to your right, my left, Adrian Esposito, Executive Director of the Citizens Campaign for the Environment. Adrian. Christopher Capice, now we're down at the other end. Christopher Capice, the Senior Development Director for Avalon Bay Communities. Jennifer Rimmer, who is right there, Director of Strategic Initiatives and Sustainability in the Northeast region for ACOM. And Lisa Dix, who's somewhere in the middle there. Senior New York Representative of the Sierra Club's Beyond Coal campaign. We're going to be welcoming up Republican Ed Mangano in the second half of tonight's program. We're going to start the forum by giving a warm welcome to Democrat Tom Suozzi, our first candidate.
How are you?
Hello. Christopher. Tom. Am I over here?
Yes, sir. You're going to have to stand for 30 minutes. This is also a test of stamina, as well as knowledge of the environment.
Good evening, everyone.
We have an opening statement of...
I was told there was no opening statement, but is there an opening statement? I'll be happy to.
Okay, great. Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I was told there's no opening statement.
First question
I'd
will
like
come
to have
from-
an opening. Go ahead. Please go ahead.
That's okay. The first questions come from Adrian Esposito.
Okay, let's get this party started. Good evening, Mr. Suozzi.
Good evening, Ms. Esposito.
This won't shock you, but my first question is on the Bay Park Sewage Treatment Plant, which I would only assume, did you hear the no clapping part of Larry's presentation? But I share your enthusiasm. Okay, Bay Park Sewage Treatment Plant, as we all well know by now, treats 42% of Nassau County sewage, discharges directly into a system called the Western Bays, which has deteriorated both with quality of water, finfish, shellfish, and also the wetlands. It is going to continue to degrade since 85% of all the nitrogen loading into that system comes directly from the Bay Park Sewage Treatment Plant, according to university scientists and studies from Stony Brook. So my question to you is three questions, but it's one. We've heard a lot about Bay Park. We know the need is great to fix the plant. It was inundated with a 9-foot wave from Superstorm Sandy. Everything about it now needs to be repaired. The question is, what specifically, I don't want an answer that says I want to fix it. We want to know specifically, how do you intend to repair that plant? Do you support, very important part of the question, an ocean outfall pipe in combination with upgrading the technology for treatment? And what is your plan and timeline to fix the Bay Park Sewage Treatment Plant for all of Nassau County?
Would you like me to repeat that for you?
No, thank you.
Please go ahead.
So the Bay Park Sewage Treatment Plant is one of the most essential pieces of infrastructure in all of Nassau County. And it's got a long history. It was built in the 1950s or so. It was upgraded in the 60s. And 1980s, it was upgraded once again. And it fell into serious disrepair. as well as all of the county infrastructure during the troubled times of the county in the 1990s, when we saw the economy in the United States of America was booming. President Clinton was the president, if you remember. We had record low unemployment, record high home ownership. There was surpluses in the federal government, and Nassau County was on the brink of bankruptcy. And our physical plant, as a result, suffered incredibly. That's why the state of New York took the extraordinary step of putting a control board in place to oversee the finances of Nassau County back in 1999. The money problems resulted in serious infrastructure problems in the county. And during my administration, we maintained the plant. We fixed up the plant. We invested a lot of money in both that and Cedar Creek plant. But there's a lot of concerns that not enough was done to improve the plant. In fact, there was a story written in the Long Island Press late in my term in like 2007 or 8 or so about serious problems related to the maintenance of the plant. And we developed, starting in 2007, and presented in 2009 a master plan as to what needed to be done to improve the plant. It included hundreds of millions of dollars over a 20-year period to improve the plant. But none of that, oh, I didn't know I had said that limited time, I'm sorry.
Got to answer the question.
Okay, so the question is, we definitely have to fix the plant dramatically. It's one of the most, I'm in favor of ocean outfall unless we can demonstrate that there is something that is more cost effective that will get the same desired impact, which is to reduce the effluent negatives that are going into the western bays right now, nitrogen, ammonia, and other things like that. Right now, nobody knows that there's an answer to do that, and ocean outfall looks like the only opportunity. But I would support ocean outfall to do that.
Next question, Jennifer Rimmer.
Thank you. It's almost a year since Superstorm Sandy. The Long Island discussion is now moving beyond recovery and into long-term protection. How do you propose coordinating the post-Sandy discussion within Nassau County's 2 cities, 3 towns, 64 incorporated villages, and over 100 unincorporated areas?
One of the things that I did when I was county executive was create the Nassau County Planning Federation. And that was used to get those exact same bodies to work together to develop model zoning codes and planning codes and building codes for the county. That's been abandoned since I've left office. I would reinvigorate something like that. All the problems that we face, including the Bay Park sewage treatment plant, require a lot of help from a lot of different sources for everybody to collaborate and communicate with each other and try and come up with ways that we can preserve this place that we love. How can we make it better? It requires a great team of people and great expertise. I have a tremendous environmental record, I believe, but I was meeting with some of my staff earlier today about what I accomplished when I was in office, and I realized that there's so much stuff that these folks that I worked with know that I don't know. And the same thing goes with the people who work in your groups and who work in Splash and work in towns and cities and villages that have so much to offer to try and solve these problems. So collaboration is the key to a long-term plan. Right now, there hasn't been much collaboration, for example, on the Bay Park sewage treatment plant and how to rebuild it. Everybody needs to be on board with the same plan as to how to make this plant resilient for the long-term future and how to deal with the other coastal problems that we have related to hurricanes and global warming.
Okay, next question, Lisa Dix.
Great. You know, Long Islanders are keenly aware of the increasing intensity of storms due to climate disruption as the impacts of Superstorm Sandy are still fresh in our minds. Continued over-reliance on fossil fuels and will make these disasters worse. The good news is that Long Island is leading the state in solar energy development. And what is your position on expanding Long Island's solar energy programs, and what specific initiatives will you support both at the state and county levels to further expand solar energy development on Long Island?
I'm very much in favor of encouraging solar energy by looking at something like the PACE legislation that was passed by the state of New York, whereby you can provide funding to homeowners and businesses to install solar treatment facilities at their homes and at their businesses and pay it back over a period of time. The big issue, something that Adrian and I worked on when we did the Green Levittown program, is that people don't have that upfront money to make these improvements themselves. And the payback period is sometimes 3, 5, 7, 10 years. So working with state legislation whereby you can provide this funding to people up front and they can pay it back over time, and if they don't pay it back, it'll be assessed to them directly. That's how you can get the banks to make sure that they'll give the funding to get these things done. So finding the funding upfront, and then having a payback period that's reasonable is one of the best ways to get it done. But it's not going to just happen from solar. One of the things that we did when I was in office, despite the major fiscal problems that we faced, is we had one of the largest alternative fuel vehicle fleets anywhere in New York State because we utilized grants and went after grants, over 100 different vehicles that we had. We upgraded 8 of our buildings so that we save almost $2 million a year in energy costs, but at the same time reduced our greenhouse gas emissions. You know, the talk when I was in office was not about hurricanes. It was about global warming. And we were constantly working on trying to figure out how to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. The sewage treatment plant, for example, we use the methane gas from the sewage treatment plant to power the sewage treatment plant. Of course, the natural gas fleet that we have with the buses, and a whole host of other things, all designed to try and reduce the county's footprint and then encourage others to do the same. One of the main things you need to do is you need to know exactly where you stand today. You know, everybody talks about a 25% reduction or a 50% reduction. Well, first you need to know where are we today exactly, and how do we get it down there, and lay out a whole bunch of different things to get there.
Chris Capis?
Thank you, Larry. Mr. Suozzi, as you know, home rule in regards to land use rules the day on Long Island here. And so with that, and meaning the villages and towns control land use on Long Island, how can you as county executive have a direct, and I underline direct, and positive impact on smart growth land use here on Long Island?
You know, this is one of my most important things that I think I need to do if I get the chance to be the county executive again, is to encourage smart growth here on Long Island, because we need to grow for the future. If we don't grow and grow in responsible ways, we're not going to make it. We need to grow so we can expand our property tax base, expand our sales tax base, so we can create jobs, and so we can attract young people to places that they want to live in here in Nassau County. 95% of our land mass should stay the same. We should preserve more open space, fix our parks, but 5% of our land mass around our train stations needs to be developed. I propose the new Suburbia Trailblazer program, whereby I would, instead of what I tried to do previously, was to say, why don't you guys do this, or you do this, or you do that, we'd have a competition similar to the governor's program that he does through the New York State Regional Economic Councils, and say, you'll compete, and we'll pick one community in 2014, 2 in 2015, 3 in 2016, and 4 in 2017, 10 communities in total in my first term in office. And if you're selected, we will provide you with the resources that are necessary to hire the planners, to hire the lawyers necessary to change your zoning and to fix a model zoning code. So for people who are afraid of multi-story buildings with apartments and offices in their downtowns, with restaurants and shops on the first floor, we'll point to Garden City and to Rockville Center and to Great Neck to show where it exists already. And places that are trying to do this, like Westbury, where they just opened the new theater in the downtown that we helped to fund when I was in office, and build apartments and restaurants and shops to create places to attract young people to live here. So the county can use some of its CDBG money, which is federal money, to provide the resources to the local towns and villages that are so busy picking up the garbage and paving the roads and doing their jobs that sometimes they can't plan for the long-term future. We'll give them the resources and help introduce them to the different high-tech industries that we have on Long Island, to introduce them to the state and federal agencies that can help them. We'll help hold your hand. And instead of us saying, you should do it, we're going to have a competition. And we'll pick one community the first year and try and make that a model, and then hopefully pick another 9 over the next 3 years.
Let's go in the same order again. Adrian?
Sure. As also you may be aware, one of the most toxic and extensive toxic waste plumes in groundwater in Nassau County is the Navy Grumman plume in Bethpage. And for that matter, it's one of the worst plumes across Long Island. As you may know, that plume is extensive. It's 4.5 miles long, 3 miles wide, and has known carcinogenic chemicals and volatile organic chemicals within it. Inexplicitly and unfortunately, the DEC's decided to not actually intercept the plume and treat it, but rather wait till it gets to the Massapequa drinking water supply, let it pollute the water supply, and then just treat the water. Obviously, we disagree. The question is, will you, if you are county executive, will you stand up for the people in Nassau County and tell the DEC you want the plume cleaned up before it poisons people's drinking water wells?
This is one of the major problems we have with both federal and state law, is we spend so much time pointing fingers at whose fault it is and where we're going to get the money from, that this stuff sticks around for 10 and 20 and 30 years. I have firsthand experience with this in the city of Glen Cove on the waterfront, where we had 2 federal Superfund site, a New York State hazardous waste site, and we brought all the parties together. And there are so many parties involved. It's not just the state DEC. We can get a lot of other parties involved from the local, state, and federal level to all convene together to attack this problem that's getting worse and worse year after year.
But the DEC is the agency that makes the call.
But you can get help from these other agencies as well. When I was mayor of Glen Cove, I had federal Superfund sites, state Superfund sites. I was recognized by Al Gore, the Vice President of the United States of America at the time, as one of 16 communities in the entire United States of America that was a model for cleaning up polluted sites. And we did it by bringing together every local, state, and federal agencies for forums to discuss, how do we solve this problem? What can you do to help us? What can you do to help us? And getting everybody to work together. We need to have the same type of effort in Bethpage, where it's gotten worse and worse year after year, because it's starting to affect a much larger area than we ever thought it would.
But will you stand up for the people in Massapequa and work to get the plume intercepted before it gets to the drinking water supply?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, thank you.
I'll do it in January. As well as
No
develop
Come on, no clapping. Let's go. Don't
as
sneak.
well as develop the plan for the sewage treatment plant and bring everyone together.
Okay, another resiliency question. Part of the resiliency discussion is centered around the level of protection we should provide for future extreme weather events. This is a policy decision that includes a cost-benefit discussion. How would you answer this question? Should seawalls be considered for our shorelines? What other measures are necessary?
You know, everything should be considered. I can't be the expert to tell you what should and should not be done. I don't have that expertise. But one of the things that I did when I was in office is I had a director of environmental coordination, someone who was a specific policy job to work together with the Department of Public Works, with the Health Department, with the state, the federal, and the local level, to all bring together all the resources that are involved in these complex decisions. Tom Marr was the guy's name, and then he had a deputy, Brad Tito.
He's in the audience.
And is Tom here? Yes. We love you, Tommy. And was to bring together all these different entities with expertise from so many different areas to work together to solve these problems. It can't be the county executive in his office or just the county executive's team. You have to bring in expertise from the community, from the, as I said, the state, the federal, and the local level. And you need to have people specifically tasked with that job. That position has since been eliminated by the current county administration. It shouldn't have been. We need to have a laser-like focus on addressing all these issues of resiliency, our air, our land, and our water, and it needs to be a priority for the administration. That's why I received so many different awards while I was in office, from not only Vice President Gore when I was mayor, but from the New York League of Conservation Voters, from the Sierra Club, from the EPA, from the Citizens Campaign for the Environment. So many different awards that were received because of the things we actually did to address these problems. Again, we didn't think about hurricanes other than hurricane preparedness and newsletters and emergency management in the old days. Now people are taking it much more seriously, and I take it very seriously.
Thank you.
Lisa?
Okay, great.
Great.
I was about to call security, this person charging the stage.
And she looks so dangerous as well.
I'm sorry, Lisa.
No worries. So, you know, part of the other really important initiative is energy energy conservation and energy efficiency. That these programs continue and move forward even under the new reorganized LIPA. And one of the big opportunities here is that those programs are 10 years and they need to continue. And I think it really offers a lot of opportunities at the county executive level for implementation of these energy efficiency programs. So can you please explain ways in which you plan to promote energy conservation, energy efficiency retrofits, renewable energy installations, and green job creation?
Again, these were things that I did when I was in office, and did quite a bit of it as far as retrofitting buildings and changing light bulbs and renewable energy. We used to purchase renewable energy from wind farms for the county. We have a requirement, a law in the county where you're actually supposed to purchase a certain amount of it each year. But we need to do more of it. And I think that a big part of my epiphany that I've had is this need for collaboration with local governments. I used to work at my desk all the time and have lunch at my desk and say, we got to do this, we got to do that. I'm much more focused now on building these relationships with mayors and town supervisors. We had the Nassau County Planning Federation before, but we need to do more of that and focus on it constantly with our state senators and the state assembly people and our federal officials. And I think that, for example, the county doesn't do lighting fixtures in the county, street lights. There are hundreds of thousands of them throughout Nassau County. We should develop a comprehensive plan to change every light bulb and every fixture in Nassau County in a way that's energy efficient that'll pay for itself. When I was mayor of Glen Cove, I did it. I saved money, it paid for itself. Instead of having 16 different fixtures that were put in year after year as the city grew, we ended up with one set of fixtures. Well, we should do that throughout the entire county of Nassau. The same as we did when the ARRA money came out under the stimulus package from the federal government, where we got the grant to change the lights for all the traffic lights. We need to do that collaborating together. The county needs to be the great convener, not only in this area, but on all areas, to get people to collaborate with each other so that they can improve the quality of life, so that we can save money in the process by sharing expertise and developing best practices. I think the county executive's role really is, in addition to managing the county, is to be the convener of all these many and varied governments. I used to talk about consolidation. I'm 100% against consolidation, let me make that clear. I'm in favor of collaboration, and part of that requires building relationships with all these different bodies. Drinking water is a very good example of that.
It's a good example.
And with the final question from our panelists, Chris?
So, Mr. Suozzi, those of us in land use espouse the importance of transit-oriented development, and nowhere is it more important than in the potential redevelopment to the Nassau hub. So, with that said, recognizing the importance of transit-oriented development as a vital aspect of the hub's redevelopment success, how would you, as county executive, advance that agenda?
Well, first of all, I'm going to support the project that's there now, even though I think it's not ambitious enough. There's 77 acres of property that surrounds the Nassau Coliseum, and we need to have a vision for this property that ties in all the assets that are around there and makes it into one of the most important destinations of Nassau County. Right across the street from the Coliseum is RXR Plaza. It's literally a long par 5 golf hole from one to the other, but you would never walk from one to the other because you'd take your life into your hands trying to cross the Hempstead Turnpike or going through that big parking lot. Right nearby is the Omni building where my law office is, a 9-story building. The RXR building is 20 stories. You've got the Museum Row. You have Nassau Community College. You have Hofstra University, where we are right here now. You have a 1,000-acre park that's Eisenhower Park, bigger than Central Park in New York City. All of these things need to be connected to each other instead of being little islands unto themselves. So that when you say to your spouse or to your children, what are you doing tonight? We're going over to the Coliseum. Not meaning you're just going to the Coliseum. You're going to this place. And we need to create these places, again, to expand our tax base, to create sales taxes, to create jobs, and to bring young people back out here again. So the Coliseum, we've got to move forward with it. It's a shame that we lost the Islanders, but we need to make this an ambitious project that connects everything together. One of the things are people say, well, why don't you have buses that go from this place to that place? The only way mass transportation works is when you have a density node to a density node. And you could have a transportation nexus from the Hempstead train station or the Garden City train station or the Mineola train station or the Carl Place train station or the Westbury train station that went back and forth each interval to this place that if it was a dense, developed area and an important place for the long-term future.
I want to thank our panelists who are not going anywhere. They'll be here for the second half as well. I'm going to ask some questions that were culled by League of Conservation Voters staff from you, the audience. First question. Oh, excuse me, Marcia, how much time do we have before we move on? Is Mr. Mangano here yet? Okay.
Oh,
Well,
we'll go till he gets here.
We'll go as far as we can. Pick a card. Okay. Mr. Suozzi, in what ways can you grow businesses without harming the environment?
Again, it has to be smart growth in these areas that I'm talking about, in these downtown areas. We need to preserve as much open space as we can. In fact, when I was in office, we had the Environmental Bond Acts. We preserved over 200 acres of open space, much of it over special groundwater protection areas. But we need to grow in our downtowns where the infrastructure currently exists, where the train stations are nearby. We need to go up. Suffolk County has collected $1.6 billion more in sales tax over the past 10 years than Nassau County has. Why? Because they're 3 times the land mass of Nassau County, and they've continued a suburban sprawl over the years. We're suburban sprawled. We can't build any more single-family houses or build any more strip malls, when we shouldn't. We should be building in our downtown areas multi-story buildings with offices and apartments and restaurants and shops on the first floor. That's how you grow the businesses. What the developers need in order to locate here is they need to have density that will give them an opportunity to make some money on what are very difficult projects. By doing this, you can create the environment where there's money to be made that tenants will actually locate there as well. The high property tax burden, especially the commercial tax burden here in Nassau County, is through the roof. The commercial tax burden is much higher here than it is in Suffolk County. It's one of the reasons that businesses don't want to locate here, and we have to give them IDA grants to do it. The only way to address that for the long term and address all of our property tax problem, and we have a property tax cap here now that I've advocated very strongly for and helped to write the report to get it in the first place, is to grow. We have to expand the tax base and spread out the cost amongst more square footage. That requires the smart growth that we're talking about to encourage businesses to locate here.
And what time is it now?
7:47.
Okay, great.
Not that he's keeping track.
And no, don't anybody send me a watch, please. New York City, Mr. Suozzi, has begun the process of eliminating plastic bags. Would you consider such a ban in Nassau County?
Before I would look at a ban, I would look at the idea of providing incentives for people to use use reusable bags instead, so that you could get a discount working with the shopping centers, for example, if you used reusable bags. But I would consider anything if it made sense. Right now, there's hundreds of bags used by each individual family per year, and it's a big piece of our waste stream.
300 to 700 per person.
700 per person.
Just saying.
I'm waiting for Adrian to announce her candidacy for county executive as well. Bus ridership. It's at a 15-year low, according to our questioner. How do you propose to improve the service and find more funding for the system?
Well, we have to hold the private contractor that's now in place accountable under the terms of its contract to make sure it provides the service that's necessary for the people of the county. The bus system should never have been something that was funded by the property tax system. It would have been great if we could have had the bus system merged with the MTA and New York City system, which is something that I advocated for very strongly for many years. New money is only going to come from the growth that we're talking about for the future. If we just keep on cutting everything. Remember when I was growing up, 60s, and you said before we were 51 years old, in the 60s and 70s, this was the greatest place to live, and New York City was a joke. New York City was where all the crime was. New York City was where all the subways were covered with graffiti. New York City was the place where the state had taken over their finances. And all they did is cut, and made the quality of life worse, and everybody left to flee to the suburbs even more. If that's what we want to do here, is just cut our way where we reduce our cops and our roads and parks are a mess and we don't have mental health and drug and alcohol services here, we're going to have big problems here for the long-term future. We have to figure out how to grow in a responsible way that will bring in new revenues to our government and make it so that we're the best county in the country, the best suburban model for other people to follow. It's being done in places in Westchester. It's being done in Washington, D.C. and out their suburbs. It can be done here. We can be the best county in the country, but we have to change our mindset. Building coalitions and collaborating with the people who are in this room who would actually show up for a debate like this, who actually care about these issues, working together with labor and with developers and with other elected officials at the state and local level, we can make this the greatest place anywhere around. But it requires us to have responsible growth in our downtown areas. For 50 years, we heard about we want to stop the Queensification of Nassau and the total urbanization of Nassau. And we don't want to be the 6th borough, which is what they said when I proposed the Lighthouse Project with Charles Wang.
Oh, yeah.
We have to grow in a responsible way, or we're not going to make it.
That was. Did you rehearse this? That was bing, perfect. Last question from the audience. What is your position on offshore wind energy, and do you believe it will have any benefits for the residents of Nassau County?
I'm willing to consider offshore wind energy. I don't like that LNG facility that they're proposing, the Port Ambrose facility, because I'm concerned they want to use it for export as opposed to import ultimately. But I would consider offshore wind energy. I don't know how much role the county executive can play other than to be someone who says they're in favor of it. It's really up to the utility to get it done.
Well, but your voice matters.
My voice matters. Thank you.
And now you're allowed to clap. Okay, that's enough.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Mangano.
And now we'll go to the closing statement.
Well, let me just, I really believe in this place. I've devoted a big part of my life to public service. And throughout my entire career in public service, I've been devoted to preserving and protecting the environment, our air, our land, and our water. As the mayor of Glen Cove, one of the first things I did is shut down the worst run incinerator in New York State. I helped to clean up those sites that I talked about earlier, for which we received the award from Vice President Al Gore. We were the first plant on the sewage treatment plant on the entire Long Island Sound to reduce our nitrogen-laden effluent by 50% before we were mandated to do so by the state and federal agencies that oversaw us. And we reduced our waste stream dramatically by over 12% by doing creative things like picking up yard waste on a separate day, or implementing the Leave It on the Lawn program, where we wouldn't pick up grass clippings anymore, but instead required people to leave their grass clippings on their lawn. And we picked up white heavy metal products like washing machines and dryers and things like that on a separate day. So I've always been committed to that since the time I was the mayor of Glen Cove. Whether it was the Environmental Bond Act that we preserved over 200 acres of open space, or it was the 4 farms that we preserved, or the 2 farms that we actually created. We created farms on county-owned property at the Old Bethpage Restoration Village. We should be creating more farms in Nassau County. And it's an organic farm as well. It's still in existence today. But we should be doing that not just because it's a nice thing to do, but it makes our life better. It's better to be able to drive by corn and say, corn, wow, that's cool. We need to preserve more places like that, as we did when I was in office. And we need to continue to try and reduce our footprint of greenhouse gas emissions and be a model for others to follow. We need to protect ourselves for the long-term future from climate change, not just by reducing our emissions, but also addressing some of these resiliency issues. Every single one of these issues, every single project that earned me these awards from the New York League of Conservation and Voters, where I was the 2008 Environmentalist of the Year, or the Citizens Campaign for the Environment, the Equinox Award, or the award from the Sierra Club, where I was named an All-Star, or from the EPA, or from Vice President Al Gore. All these things are based upon collaborating and working together with people that care about these issues and are all devoted to preserving our long-term sustainable health here on Long Island. We can be the best place in the country, but it requires us to work together with each other and recognize we're not the same place we were in the 1950s and 60s. We're a different place. We can preserve the good stuff that we have, the stuff that we love about this place, the North Shore waterfronts and the ocean beaches and the open spaces and the schools and the parks. We can preserve all that stuff and fix up the schools that are troubled right now, that have been ignored for much too long, and address the places that have problems with crime while keeping crime down in places that it's always been kept down. We can be the best place, but it requires us to all work together and recognize that the vision I'm talking about is going to require leadership, it's going to require collaboration, and it's going to require a little bit of faith that this place is the special place that we all know it is. Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, we are not going to take a break. We're going to just keep rolling or rocking and rolling. I mean, if you need to go take a break, go take a break. I mean, I'm getting away there.
No, you're not allowed.
But this is, I think it's a smoke-free campus, so don't even think about it. I'd like to just keep going. A very warm welcome for County Executive Ed Mangano. guess that wasn't applause, so I can't give you a dirty look. All right, there's no opening statement. Your answer, just to make sure there's no confusion, you get 2 minutes.
There is an opening statement?
No, there's no opening statement.
that's
There's a
good.
closing statement. And for the stage directions, the time limit and the bell, the young woman in front of your wife.
Just wave your hands.
Right. Well, let's go right away. Let's keep going. Start right away. Adrian Esposito from the Citizens Campaign.
Good evening, County Executive. How are you?
Good evening.
As you, I know, have anticipated, there will be a question on the Bay Park Sewage Treatment Plant.
Sure.
As you well know, the Bay Park Sewage Treatment Plant treats 42% of Nassau County sewage, discharges all of that effluent into the Western Bay system, which is dying. The water quality is declining, the shellfish, the finfish, overgrowth of seaweed, and we need to do something about it. So I'm going to ask you to please be specific. We're not looking for a general answer. Sure. What is your plan to fix the Bay Park Sewage Treatment Plant since it was drowned by Superstorm Sandy? What is the timeline? And do you support an ocean outfall pipe in conjunction with upgrading the treatment ability of the facility as part of that fix?
Yeah, well, clearly we put forth the most comprehensive repair plan, mitigation plan to strengthen the plant, which includes an ocean outfall pipe. We're working with over 13 engineering companies, New York State, and the federal government and the interagencies to make this plan come to fruition. As you well know, this is the right way to go. Post-Hurricane Sandy, the plant was devastated. There's a significant amount of work that needs to be done right now, which we put forth $721 million in a plan to mitigate it in its current state. And we have a comprehensive $2 billion plan that will include the ocean outfall pipe. We hope to achieve that through a cooperative agreement with both the state and the federal government. We work on it every day. Every week there's a conference call on it in Albany a number of times to make certain that this plant finally gets repaired the proper way, the best way, and also to strengthen it against a 100-year storm, to fortify it against 9.5 feet tidal surges, which we know now is a possibility. But at the same time, we have a wonderful opportunity to take a regional approach and help the other plants that were devastated during the storm, both in Long Beach and Point Lookout, Atlantic Beach, and the village of Hempstead. And we put forth a comprehensive plan that will help all of those plants, help our taxpayers, and most importantly, clean up our environment, clean up the bays, and at the same time, strengthen our county.
Next question from Jennifer Rimmer from
Good
AECOM.
evening. On resiliency, it's now almost a year since Superstorm Sandy. The Long Island discussion is now moving beyond recovery and into long-term protection. How do you propose coordinating the post-Sandy discussion within Nassau County's 2 cities, 3 towns, 64 villages, and over 100 unincorporated areas?
Well, I would say this. While the dollars have been slow to flow from the supplemental appropriation, communication has strengthened. We work in a collaborative effort with, again, the state and the federal teams and all those affected municipalities, especially those with respect to wastewater treatment, to put forth a plan that works for all the municipalities. This is a time where all should be engaged in their communities and certainly in our long-term health here in the county. We have projects that go forward for not only wastewater treatment, but restoring bulkhead, restoring beaches, cleaning up our waterways, removing debris from our waterways. We have comprehensive plans that we've put forth on all of these areas, and we've engaged those community groups, those leadership not-for-profit groups, and those elected officials that lead those communities in fostering a plan that really gives us an opportunity to strengthen Nassau County like it's never been strengthened before. The only thing that perhaps good came out of Hurricane Sandy is there was no prior plans in place that would have protected the county and its environment against a tidal surge of 9.5 feet. All the prior plans looked at 2 and 3 feet. We would have been wiped out even if that was accomplished. Now's the opportunity to build the right way, the environmentally sound way, and protect all our residents here in Nassau County, as well as have an opportunity to improve our economy. And that's what we put forward. I'm out of time.
You could have waited till the ding if you wanted to.
Oh, okay. I'm
There's a
watching.
great-
Very efficient right here. All right. There you go.
Okay, Lisa Dix.
Yo, even in the
Welcome.
legislature, they give you 3 minutes.
I know, now it's like reverse.
I'm working on it.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Great. So Long Islanders are keenly aware of the increasing intensity of storms due to climate disruption, as the impacts of Superstorm Sandy are still fresh in our minds even a year later. And our continued over-reliance on fossil fuels will continue to make these disasters worse in the future. And our energy choices do matter. Fortunately, Long Island is leading the state in solar energy development. So what's your position on expanding Long Island's solar energy programs, and what specific initiatives will you support both at the state and county levels to further expand solar energy development on Long Island?
On the county level, we're fully engaged in converting to solar energy. We have the first solar roof of its kind right at our Public Safety Center in our Department of Public Works. The entire roof is solar panels, which we did in cooperation with New York State. With respect to wind power, which is a very promising renewable energy, we are working close with the newer federal and state grants that are out there to achieve that and work that into our plan. So we've moved forward in the county to make it leaner and greener, both not only with solar roofs, but we've also converted every traffic light here in the county to LED, saves $1 million a year. We retrofitted our jail with all new fixtures that are energy efficient and save us a significant amount of money each year. And actually, we won a $500,000 award from LIPA for that plan that we put into effect and just completed. There's plenty of opportunities through use of our CNG vehicles. We have incorporated some electric vehicles in our golf course. We're looking to expand and use more electric vehicles and have those power stations available for our county infrastructure, and then move out and involve the private sector as well.
Chris Capice from Avalon Bay.
Mr. Mangano, as you know, the villages and towns control land use on Long Island, which ultimately means that home rule wins the day. How can you, as county executive, have a direct and positive impact on smart growth land use policy on Long Island?
Well, clearly you hit it on the head. You need to involve those that have the jurisdiction to grant the land use exception so you can achieve these projects. We've worked very closely with towns and villages. I'm proud to say that we put forth an incentive plan to convert empty, vacant office buildings into apartments. We have 4 buildings now that have signed on. 2 will break ground shortly. They are by train stations. That gives us that transit-oriented development that we're looking for. It provides a housing option for our young professionals, and at the same time reuses existing buildings. So it's consistent with our environmental policy as well as our economic development policy. And again, Chris, as you know, and I know the work that Avalon Bay has done and the struggles and the time it takes to achieve the projects that you've achieved here on Long Island, cooperation and communication is the most effective way to achieve a project. And that's what's been my style, and that is now grounded in the successful projects that we've launched and have become reality here in the county.
Okay. Let's just keep rolling the way we've been rolling. Adrian Esposito, second round.
Okay. As I'm sure you are familiar with also, is one of the largest and most extensive toxic waste plumes in groundwater in Nassau County is the Navy Grumman plume emanating, was that water clean? Emanating
All too familiar with those issues.
Okay. From Bethpage.
Yes.
Very extensive plume, has known carcinogenic materials, volatile organic chemicals, and it's extensive. It's 4.5 miles long, 3 miles wide. And unfortunately, the DEC has decided that it would be okay for that plume to reach the Massapequa municipal drinking water wells, allow them to become polluted, and then treat that water before it's served to the public. Clean water is different than treated water.
Sure.
So the question is, will you stand up with the people and with the public from Massapequa and at Bethpage and tell the DEC that they need a stronger plan, a better plan, and intercept that plume before it contaminates our municipal drinking water supplies.
Yeah, not only will I stand up, I have stand up. I have a strong record of standing up and fighting to get the resources necessary to clean up that plume. I work very closely with the Bethpage Water District, who has really been a leader and an expert in this particular area. We've worked hard and we fought for, and there's a myriad of stripping towers on there that try to attack the plume. Very simply, during the defense industry years, all the heavy metals that were used to heat treat the defense industry were leached into the ground. That's how they were disposed of. And of course, we obtain our drinking water from the ground. And over the last 40, 50 years, they've entered our aquifer. They tend to stay together in these big pockets of contaminants. And the past practices have been to try to put these stripping towers in and intercept those pockets of oil, if you will, and strip them up and get them out of the wells. But the contamination has been so extensive, and as we've had and fought for, and we have significant modeling to show you where these plumes are, that they do move. They've tried various treatment options, soil removal to stop it, soil vapor removal, and a lot more needs to be done in that particular area to protect our drinking water. And we continue to fight to get a comprehensive cleanup of that, of those plume, of the contaminated plume. It definitely has affected wells in Bethpage, where we had the first well that was closed, and that's really what gave, that gave us the information that, hey, there's a serious problem here because it was coming up in our drinking water. And you just can't work quick enough, to be honest with you, to get those plans in place and protect those wells. Or if you can't get it out of the way, you need to shut that well, and they need to pay for an additional well in a safe area. And that's what we achieved in Bethpage when it became evident that there was no technology out there available to stop that plume from affecting a drinking well. We had them fund a new well, and this is the type of thing that needs to go on as this plume continues to gravitate towards the Atlantic Ocean.
Part of the resiliency discussion is centered around the level of protection we should provide for future extreme weather events. This is a policy decision that also includes cost-benefit discussion. How would you answer this question? Should seawalls be considered for our shorelines? What other measures are necessary?
They should be considered, and in fact, I know that we're studying some, in the mitigation plan. As you know, we all fought for dollars to strengthen our county through the supplemental appropriation. Collectively, Nassau County requested, including all of its municipalities and all the harms from homeowners, businesses, governmental infrastructure, and the environment, $6.7 billion. Our challenge now should be to use that money efficiently and wisely to strengthen this county and our shoreline as much as possible. And these technologies now are within our reach because we do have the dollars to do it right now, and that's why we've engaged experts. We have a great team, again, in communication with the state and federal government. I put together an advisory panel that's overseeing and working with our wastewater treatment plant, but that clearly can extend into these other areas. We work with Splash and other organizations that really have made this their life's work, and we try to support them and have engaged them actually in the cleanup process, the mitigation process, and continue to get the best possible plan. There's still discussion that needs to be done and accomplished with respect to choosing some of these mitigation technologies that are out there, but we are fully engaged in that discussion and in fact have the major plans already set forth to protect our county, and we're well underway.
Executive Mangano, you talked in your last question about some of the really great programs that you promoted and put forward in regards to energy efficiency. I would like you to talk specifically how you would plan to promote energy conservation and energy efficiency in addition to what you have already accomplished, renewable energy installations, and increased green job creation.
Well, certainly through our education awareness campaigns, from anywhere from press releases to actual mailings to communicate with our residents so they can understand what's going on. You can go on our website so you can understand what we're accomplishing here in the county. Certainly we look forward to working with the new LIPA, if you will, to see how they want to communicate and what their new communication plans are to alert the public of these technologies, not only what government's doing, but how we could all partner together to achieve a cleaner Nassau County. And that's pretty much what we've been doing, and we wish to continue to do it. There's a lot of technology out there. I also put forth legislation to create a sustainable loan fund to help residents pay for the technologies that are out there and spread that repayment out over time as a portion of the savings that they would receive by reducing their energy consumption bills. That bill is pending in Washington. I fought to get that in place, and hopefully we will get the authority to create a sustainable loan fund for our residents to convert to energy efficient uses.
Just a quick follow-up. I know that, with the LIPA reorganization, there is questions about whether the energy efficiency programs are going to be protected. In particular, the $900 million 10-year program that has worked so effectively here on Long Island. And I am just hoping and would like to hear your perspective on really working to protect that program, because it is so important for local governments to continue their programs.
We're certainly an advocate for that program. Those programs have been very successful, not only for homeowners and businesses, but government itself has participated in these programs. It has, in fact, resulted in savings for our residents. It's certainly reduced our carbon footprint, and it's the smart way to go. It's the right way to go, and it moves you off of the reliance on fossil fuels. So it would be short-sighted to eliminate that. We need to build on it and build on the successes. And if you look at the economics of it, it's just a matter of spreading out the costs so they can pay for themselves over the dollars that you save in the lower cost of the energy usage.
And the final question from our panelist, Chris?
Mr. Mangano, you touched earlier on the importance of transit-oriented development on Long Island in one of your earlier answers. So with that said, recognizing the importance of transit-oriented development as a vital aspect of the hub's redevelopment success, how would you as county executive advance that agenda?
Well, we're entirely engaged in the hub and making it a transit-oriented site. If you look already, we have the bike paths in place, the complete streets. I passed complete street legislation. We have been engaged with Hofstra University and actually discussed having footbridges that go over the busy roads to connect the new economic center that we're going to have, known as the hub, with phase 1 being a new world-class coliseum, phase 2 an entertainment district, and phase 3 really holds the most promise, where we'll look to leverage academia and our industry here to create a really wonderful job generator in the area of high-tech and biotech. We have the opportunity to do that through the Planning Commission, who has been studying transportation at the hub since I became a legislator in 1996. They've studied every alternative under the sun. They have got behind and proffered that we should begin with bus rapid transit, which we're already engaged with Veolia, who operates our bus system, to make certain that bus rapid transit will be the initial transit option that will add to that area. So we're fully engaged in making the hub a walkable community, making the hub consistent with our complete streets, and certainly tying it into transit, housing, academia, and other retail centers to make it what it should be, a world-class center. We're well on our way now that we have a developer-operator. The lease is passed. The legislature will look forward to moving Nassau County forward, and we certainly have that foundation in place now.
I want to thank our panelists. You did a wonderful job. It was amazing how you asked the exact same questions in the exact same ways of both candidates. County Executive, now we're going to move to questions from the audience. We're going to ask you the same questions that we called from them that we asked Mr. Suozzi. First one, in what ways can you grow business without harming the environment?
Well, number one, obviously, reuse buildings, and that's what our economic development team has encouraged, from converting empty, unused buildings to apartment space, to helping encourage incubator-type and collaborative-type office space from the Think Box in Hicksville, which is right by the Hicksville train station, and working with the Chamber of Commerce there. There's much that can be done and leveraged with the existing infrastructure that we have here. The economy's getting better, the incentives are competitive, and we're beginning to finally see realistic results in those areas that are going to provide opportunities for our young professionals, going to support the businesses that are here and want to stay here and grow here. We have the most skilled labor right here in Nassau County. We have the most educated workforce than anywhere else in the nation, and our job is to keep them here and keep Nassau growing and keep those options here. And certainly, we've been doing that. We begin, and Larry, I know that you've studied on this and you've given advice on this. You know, we're beginning to see the seeds grow, and that's good news for everyone here in Nassau County.
New York City has begun the process of eliminating plastic bags. Would you consider such a ban in Nassau County?
I would probably lean more towards education and awareness and other incentive programs rather than out-and-out bans. You'd have to look at the, the economics of it, and
Are you sure?
clearly. Other than that, I may consider banning. I'd be willing to discuss this further with the panel, but he threw me off with that one. I haven't really. Be honest with you, you know me. I like to research the subject and really know about it. I haven't really tuned into, the effects here and whether we're using biodegradable bags and moving
can
towards
meet.
other options. We'll meet, Adrian.
Okay.
You're lucky.
We'll talk.
Before you arrived, I was able to talk Michael Pasilico and Adrian Esposito out of running for county executive this year.
Well, welcome to the race.
Bus ridership is at a 15-year low. How do you propose to improve the service and find more funding for the system?
Yeah, well, obviously, we became more efficient in our bus service, working with a private operator of our public bus system. We've actually added routes. We're able to save Able Ride, which was slated for its demise under the MTA's plan. We are able to move forward and are fully engaged with them on a transportation option for the hub. So, through demand, through efficiency, we have been actually providing more bus service through technology. We're launching a program where you can get all the information right on your smartphone. We've worked with the state, which has provided additional funding for our bus company. We're able to hold our fares flat, and we'll continue to work with our riders and, most importantly, also, with the businesses that need to move their employees through the public bus system to the employment centers, through our retail centers, but at the same time, make sure that we have an affordable bus system for our riders.
Final question before we go to your closing remarks. What's your position on offshore wind energy, and what do you believe the benefits could be for Nassau County residents?
Well, clearly, wind technology now is the, rising renewable energy resource that we must engage. We are fully engaged now, talking with the state and the federal government on their new plans and incentives that they've put out so we can achieve this in the county. I don't think that you should eliminate any option when it comes to siting and utilizing wind. You just need to do it in a thoughtful way. There's certainly places here in Nassau County that wind technology will work. It will not be intrusive, and at the same time gets us off the reliance of fossil fuels. It's going to make it cheaper for our residents and cheaper for businesses and government, help our economy. It's the right way to go, and we're fully supportive of wind power technology.
Now, I inadvertently gave Mr. Suozzi an extra round of applause, so you can applaud if you like this time. Okay, that's enough.
Thank you, Larry.
We at Hofstra,
All right, thank you. Thank you.
we at Hofstra revel in our neutrality. Now for a two-minute closing statement.
My closing. Well, listen, it certainly is an honor to serve as your county executive. With respect to the environment, we have put forth very strong, cleaner, greener policies here in our county, from greening our roofs to our CNG cars to a plethora of projects, including our traffic lights, converting into LEDs, fixture conversions, working on wind power, and at the same time advancing probably the most significant environmental project opportunity that this county has had in the last 50 years is to achieve an ocean outfall pipe right here in the county, fix the Bay Park sewage treatment plant, our wastewater treatment plant, in a regional way that's going to help not only the Bay Park plant, but Long Beach, Point Lookout, Atlantic Beach, Hempstead, the village of Hempstead. The opportunity is now. We're fully engaged in this process. I hope that you return me to serve as your county executive. I have worked on these projects now, engaged fully over the last year. I've built an acute knowledge and certainly relationships from the state and the federal team that's going to benefit our taxpayers by making this project a reality here in our great county. The time is now. I hope that you will return me to office to continue this work so we can have a cleaner Nassau County, a stronger Nassau County, and one we could all be proud of. Thank you. Thank you.
On behalf of Hofstra University, President Rabinowitz, Dr. Brinkman in our Sustainability Studies program, and the League of Conservation Voters, please drive safely, and thank you for your attendance. Worked out.